Hi everybody. So I just recorded like 30 minutes of video and didn't record the right screen, and so that was a waste. What we're gonna do today is I don't know if you've ever seen the game Simon. It's like a device in the 90s. You light up different things and you hit them in a certain order. Then it does it in the same order again, but adds another color, and you have to, do 5 in a row, then 6, then 7, and 8, and just stretches your memory. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use everything we learned in the last episode about lighting up a controller, using it as an output. And so we're going to turn this MIDI controller into a Simon game. Let's look at our app structure here. So we've got a script folder, app CSS, app JS, index.html, and a README. In here we've got game, MIDI, and Simon. Game is just a duplicate MIDI is just a duplicate of the MIDI from last time. And yeah, so that's our setup. Let's look at app.js. We import game. Well, I guess first of all, let's look here. So we're including everything as type module in our index.html. And honestly, I can just close that. App.js is importing game and saying new game. Game is importing MIDI and Simon. And it is, you know what, we could probably do this too. This.MIDI equals new MIDI. Save. And then Simon isn't doing anything yet. So now when we refresh, we should be able to just do like console.log. I'm here. Come on now. There it is. Wonderful. Now let's think about Simon for a second. And if I forget to put my face down, I'm going to hurt something. Okay, so we've got 16 pads here, 4 by 4. Each of these pads, if you remember, has a number. So the lowest one's 36, the highest one's 51. And we are going to be passing that into Simon as an array of numbers. That array is going to be an array of these buttons, and we're going to call that a matrix. Now, your numbers might be different, so I'm not going to hard code them in here. We're just going to make a Simon that doesn't care about anything else. It just has an array of numbers. It adds to that array, resets, and checks an answer. So let's come back down here, and we're going to say, so this dot matrix is going to be an array, and let's just, for memory, be like, this is going to be 36, then 37, all the way up to like 51 or whatever it is, right? We also want to like start a round right away, but it's going to happen more than just, let's just call it reset, and this will be called more than once. So reset is going to set us up, and we'll say this dot pattern, which is going to be the memory, so to speak, like what we're asking somebody to remember, what Simon is saying, remember this. That's going to be an empty array. And let's add something to that pattern. So that function we'll call step, and all this is going to do is add something to the pattern. So this dot pattern dot push this dot matrix. Remember, those are the options that we can select from. And we'll say math.floor, math.random times this dot matrix dot length. So that will randomly select an item from our matrix. Duplicates are fine. And it'll add it to our pattern every time we call step. And let's just, we don't need to return anything here. All right, so step. Finally, let's write a function that compares a pattern to the Simon pattern. So when I do 1, 2, 3, it's going to compare that to 1, 2, 3 and Simon. So we'll call that submit. So you submit an answer to Simon. Now this is going to be an array. We're going to call it pattern because that's what it is supposed to be. And before we get too far, I'm going to say we got to provide a pattern here. For testing purposes, let's just deal with 6 numbers. So we have 6 potential numbers. And then let's just do this .simon.step to create the first item in the pattern again. So this will create a pattern of 3. And then we will console.log this .simon .pattern. There we go. Wonderful. 424. And I'm going to say window.game equals new game. So we can say game there we go, .simon .submit, and we'll just do 6. So we're passing in a 6, nothing happens, but something's going to happen. So that's this being called right here. We're passing in an array that's supposed to resemble a part of the current pattern, which in this case is 662. Then you'll end up calling like this, and it'll compare it against that. And are the first 2 6? They are, so it would return OK. Then we do it again for 3 numbers and so on. So what submit is going to return is going to be, I think there's 2 things, right? The first thing is whether or not the answer that's been submitted is valid. So we'll call that like success, const success equals false for now. We'll return success. The other thing it'll return when we submit is whether or not we've done all of them. So in this case, the pattern, like down here in the console, our pattern is 3 length. And so basically, when we call this, complete would be false. When we call this, complete would be false. Success would be true. And then when we call this, complete will be true and success will be true. If we did this, complete would be true, success would be false. And if we did this, complete would be false and success would be false. So complete is going to be pattern dot length is equal to this dot pattern dot length. We can just set that, that's fine. And then let's return this here, save. And then what we need to do is we need to check and make sure. So for now, let's console.log pattern.join, just so that it's easier to read, like that. And then we'll do this .pattern.join that. Okay, so now if we submit like 2, we get 2 and then 266. Complete false, success false. Success is always going to be false, that's fine. So now 6, we want to compare 2 6 to 2 6. The way we're going to do that is using slice with an array. So slice basically says you have an array and we want to take a slice of it from index X to index Y, or A to B, however you want to think about it. So let's say the compare pattern is going to be a slice of this dot pattern. So this dot pattern dot slice. And we're going to say from index 0 to pattern dot length. So however many we're passing in, so if we're passing 1 in, this will be 0 to 1. If we're passing 2 in, it'll be 0 to 2. Now, what we need to do, if we call this as is, this will modify this dot pattern. So this dot pattern will become a new value that's missing value. We don't want to do that. So what we can do is say array.from, and create a clone of this dot pattern. That way, when we call slice, we're not editing it. We're only getting the value from it. Okay. So then when we log, let's just log, instead of this dot pattern, let's log this dot compare. Or just compare. So 544. So we're comparing 2.6 to 5.4. If we bring this to 1, it'll be 2 to 5. Let's do 2, 1, 1. Yeah, that compares 211 to 544. Perfect. Notice how complete is now true. So all we need to do is just say success is if this is equal to compare.join dash, and then move that down. So compare creates an array that's the length of whatever the size of the array is that we're testing. Success is whether or not compare and pattern are the same. And the best way to do that is using like join, so that we're comparing strings instead of arrays. And then complete is whether or not the length of the pattern is the length of this dot pattern, which is the entire array. And then we return complete success. I think that's all we need to do with Simon. I'm going to move that comment to here. We're going to have to change that later. Okay. So what we should be able to do, so it's 242. So we should do this, complete false, success true. This should be complete false, success false, false true, 2-4, false true, 2-4-1, false, true false, all right. And then 242 is true true, because we're finally passing in 242. Wonderful. So Simon, our game, is working. That's all we need to know with Simon. So then we can do, presumably we'd be like, okay, if complete is true and success is true, then game.simon.step. And now game.simon.pattern is 2421. So we'd then test, submit 242. We'd start from the beginning again, 242, and then eventually we'd be like this. And then we get complete true again. Perfect. All right. So here's our Simon. We've got our MIDI. Let's do this dot on event. If you remember, bind this. This is the callback whenever an event occurs. Console.log event.type. Just for now, we'll do that. Okie smoky. Oh, we need to initialize this dot MIDI dot initialize dot then. It's a promise. And let's institute Simon at this point, I guess. Who cares? Save. Or no, you know what? Let's move this. Let's just say when the MIDI's ready, we're going to start our game. So start is just going to set Simon. It's going to set, it's going to just do, it's going to do a, what should we do here? We should just, let's do step. Use the same pattern that we're using in Simon. So step is going to this dot Simon dot step, right? So that's going to add the first thing. And then it's also going to, we're going to have like our answer going. Remember the thing we're passing into submit? So whenever we step, that resets, right? So step only happens when it's complete. So if we're on level 3 and we have 3 numbers, we submit 1, then we submit 2, then we submit 3, then we step. So every time we step, we have to reset our answer, because then it'll be 4 and we need our answer to go 4 times now. Then we go 5 and so on. So step is going to clear our answer every time. And then now all we need to do is just like handle all of our MIDI events. So got 2 device connecteds. One of these is the output being connected. The other one's the input. Let's do this. This dot input equals null. Let's just do MIDI input is null. MIDI output is also null. These are going to be the same device, but we'll save these to be our device name. So how about if this is going to be an else? We'll just log the entire event. So if event.type is equal to device connected, this dot on connected event.device. If event type is equal to device disconnected, then we'll do on disconnected event.device. So on connected, it's going to have a device. On disconnected is also going to have a device. Let's just console dot, well, we don't need to worry about, I didn't spell that right. We don't need to worry about disconnected right now. Let's just say if device dot type is equal to input and, or how about this? If device dot type is not equal to input, or we already have this dot MIDI input, return. Otherwise, this dot MIDI input equals this dot device dot name. We'll just use the name for now. Cool. No, we don't want to do that. We want to say if it's equal to input and we don't have this, then we do this. If the device.type is equal to output and we don't have an output, then we set the output. Sorry, that I was trying to save some time there, but this is actually what we need to do. Okay. So then on disconnected, we're going to say if device.type is equal to input and this .MIDI input is equal to device.name, we will set this back to null. And then we'll say same thing here. So this is just going to clear our MIDI stuff if it's not there. And you know what? If we're disconnecting an input, we're also going to destroy our Simon. This dot Simon equals null. And that makes sense. Okay, cool. So on connected, we set the MIDI input. On disconnected, we remove the MIDI input. On connected for output, we set the MIDI output. This is just so we keep track of the names. It's not that complicated. If any, we don't even like really need to worry too much about this stuff. I'm just kind of thinking ahead here. So that's our device connected and disconnected. So let's get, yikes. Let's get our note on event, right? So this dot on press, and that's going to be event.a.value. So that's going to, I know that on note on, the A value is which pad is being pressed. And then on note off, we'll call it on release. So on press and on release this is going to have a key, and that's going to have a key. And we'll just say on press, if this dot key exists, return. Else, well, we don't need an else because we have a guard clause. Then we just say this dot key equals key. And then on release, we say if this dot key is not equal to the key that's being released, we don't care. So get out of here. Otherwise, this dot key equals null. Perfect. So now key is going to be a value whenever we are holding down a pad. That's on press, on release. So then we only want to do logic on release. So how's that going to work here? We're going to push the key into the answer, right? So we're going to end up submitting our answer here. So this dot answer dot push, whatever the key is that's being pressed. Then this dot Simon dot submit our array of answers, and this will return whether or not it's complete and whether or not there is success. So then if we aren't successful, we want to alert you fail, and let's just, you got to level this dot answer dot length -1 successfully. Then we want to reset it, which I think is just start, right? Start, yeah, new Simon, new step. Okay. Let's just call start reset. That makes more sense. Okay. Else, if complete, so if we're successful, we can go and just keep going and not do anything. But if we're complete, if the round is over, then we just step, right? Which is going to clear our answer and add another one and ask us to do it all again. The only thing that's missing is like how Simon communicates to us, but we'll take care of that in here, I think. Let's console.log this.simon.pattern. Okay, so it's asking for 1, which we can't. Okay, so let's see if this works actually. So game.simon.submit 1. Ha, wonderful. So let's just do game dot, what is it, on release. Nothing happens because we need to do on press and then on release. Boom, Simon responded. Okay, here's 1.6. So now what we want to do is do game.press, game.release, game.press 6, game.release 6. Awesome. I think we did it. Game over. Just kidding. Let's make it actually work here using the MIDI controller. So instead of 1 through 6, we're going to do, I know that mine's 36 through 51. Oh, boy. All right. Let's just actually say matrix const matrix equals this. Save. All right. 44. That looks like something from our matrix. Wonderful. So what happens? 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. So 44 is pad 9. Let's, awesome. So that worked. So then 44 42. Got it. Then it wants 44, 42, 42. Now it wants 44, 42, 42, 50. I'm getting pretty good at guessing which numbers those are. But we shouldn't do that. What we should do is light it up, right? So on step, instead of logging the pattern, let's call this dot light. And then in this function, it's going to be a recursive function. So we'll just say index equals 0. We're going to need to go through Simon's pattern and light each one in the pattern up. So let's look at const pattern equals this dot Simon. And then we'll, if you remember, we have this dot MIDI dot notify. Note on, if I remember correctly, is 144 for channel 1. Then we want to light up pattern index, which is going to be whatever the first thing is. And then we want a value of 127. And the name is going to be this dot MIDI output. And we're going to, if no output, return. All right. This should light up my thing right now. Voila. So now I can press that. All it did, well, it said I failed. Womp womp. That's because the note up didn't work or something. Okay. We don't want this to happen immediately. Let's set timeout. MIDI notify. Let's do this 250 milliseconds into the future. And then we're going to tell it to turn off, which is 128, 0. And we'll turn it off at 750. So this will be a half second. And then if index is less than pattern dot length -1, we will set timeout again, except this time it will be 1 second in the future, and it will be this dot light index +1. I think that's all we need to do. We might have like a game done. So let's see what we can do here. I'm going to refresh. We got to turn that off and that off. Okay. Oh, interesting. So this is, I got to get into like a reset mode here because it just thinks that I'm really bad at this game. So, okay. Let's refresh. What's the best way to do this? Got it. Okay, wants this, this, this. Oh, I think I got it. This, 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 this. Okay, you can't see anything, so who cares? It's working. The game is working. I'm about to fail. There's our fail. Boo. Okay. So we have failed. The game is over. I think we need a visualization of this, right? Thing that sucks is like I'm going to be putting this effort into code that looks like my device. That's going to like not mean anything for you. Let's give it a shot though, so that we can at least see it. Div ID equals device. And this is just going to mirror my device. And in fact, I know matrix. what's really frustrating is the order of these buttons physically is very interesting. So we actually want to start. I'm just going to do an extra function that's garbage. Draw matrix is going to so we have 4 rows of 4, 0 through 3 is the bottom row. I'm going to define a 2-dimensional matrix that represents our matrix. This is going to be very weird, but it's going to be worth it. So this is the top row, the middle bottom row, and the bottom row. This is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. This is going to be index 4, 5, 6, and 7. This is going to be 8, 9, 10, 11. And this is going to be 12, 13, 14, and 15. And that, each of these numbers refers to each of these indexes. That's how my thing is laid out, which is super annoying. So let's say this is rows, and we will, what was the name of our element here? Device. Const device equals document.get element by ID device rows.for each. We're going to have a row, and the row is going to, let's const row. This is like a thing that I used to do here, which is $ from jQuery days. So this is going to represent an element. Create element div, and then row.for each, we're going to have an index, right? So that's each one of these numbers in the row. And we are going to create a button. And we will say the const matrix value equals matrix index. Button.inner text equals matrix value. This is ridiculous. And then we need an ID. Button.id equals matrix value, and we can't start with a number, so let's just do button dash whatever. Then we are going to row dot append child button, and we're not going to click these. Well, you know what? Let's click them. This will be good. Making them clickable will allow us to play the game on the screen, not just with the MIDI controller. That works. So we're going to send a note on and a note off when we click and release a button. So yeah, wonderful. This shouldn't take too long. So device.append child row. And let's see what we have here. We should get a matrix that looks like, you know what? There is no reason for this export const matrix to be in here. We're going to grab game and our matrix. Let's do this. Oh, come on now. Perfect. All right, 36 through 39, 40 through 43, 48 through 51. So when I just failed, we'll style these in a little bit here. Actually, we should just make them bigger really quick. App.css this is the wrong app.css here. What did we call it? We called it device text align center or something. Or no, there's divs. So no, how is this constructed? Device, the button is the full width. Device button. Let's just do this first. Font size 4rem. Okay, there we go. Appearance, none. Let's do 3. Background, white. Color, black. Margin, 0.5 rem. Display, block, height, 4rem. Width, 4rem. Line height, 4rem. Padding, 0. Text align, center, and then device div, display flex, justify content center. Isn't this fun? Oh wow, look at what we have here. This looks like a game. Okay, then we'll just say button.active will just be background yellow for now. Okay, so that should be fine. And now we just need button.add event listener, mouse down. We are going to call game.onPress, right? Game, get out of here. Game.onPress, right? And then the number, which is matrix value. That's the actual number. Then button.mouse up on release. Yep. And then that's fine. So I know that it wants me to click this one. Okay. So, okay. Refresh. So it wants me to click 41. And then let's log it here. You know what? Screw it. Let's just do it right here. So when we do the const on is a function that's going to do this and some other things. And then we're going to have const off, which is going to happen at 750, which is going to call this. The reason I'm doing this is so that we can, just for now, do our buttons in here. So we are going to document.get element by ID. If you remember, it's button dash this dot class list dot add active, and then here dot remove. So whenever we light up one, so boom, doink, doink. Yep. So that's corresponding to the lights that are going off on here. Like you'll see, 49 just got lit up, which is up at the top. Cool. All right, I'm going to call it here. That was, I think, enough. I might make some like CSS style changes to make this a little bit more attractive, or maybe I might try to move this out of game.js. You know what? Let's just leave it for now. That way you can play this version of it. You know what? We should just say here. It's when we call MIDI notify, even if we don't have a MIDI device plugged in, that's fine. Nothing should error if there's no MIDI device. We can check that really quick. I'm going to unplug MIDI device and we'll just refresh. So 42, 42, 42, 46. Yeah, so this thing works even though my device isn't plugged in, which is exactly what the doctor ordered. What the doctor didn't order is my cable just fell behind the screen. So we did it. We're playing Simon Says with a MIDI controller, and it's, you know, day 97 of quarantine. Anyways, I hope you all are doing well. I hope this was helpful. I'll try to do more of these. I might try to mix it up and not do more MIDI stuff right now. I feel like we're all MIDI'd out, but feel free to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer as I get to it. I'm still working. Thankfully, very blessed to be doing that. So I'll get to that as soon as I can. Anyways, hope this was fun. It's fun for me, and I'll talk to you all later. See ya. Hey, it's me again. I just realized like there might not be enough good footage of me actually playing this thing. So now I'm on my knees with my camera down here so that you can see this. So let me get back in a situation where I'm like a normal person, and let's refresh our page. Refresh. Wonderful. That was this one. Okay, now we're gonna mess it up on purpose, and let me move you down here, and let's get this like this. So now you can see over here, we'll have this going as well. I'm gonna mess up. Okay, so we failed. New game, 47, 47. Oh gosh, is it this? Yes. 2, 3. So you can imagine, like, we could totally do this with like web audio as well, to have it like make fart noises or whatever. 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyways, this is kind of like a little bit closer to just like the worst version of unlocking your phone. And it's like the perpetual phone password. Maybe that's what we should call this, is perpetual phone password. That's what we call gropramming. Anyways, that's that. Hope you're doing well. Just thought I'd give you that update. All right, see ya.